two platforms right now, YouTube as well as Facebook. So if the angle feels a little off, I'm just trying to maintain two screens at once. So most women think burnout is just physical exhaustion, but burnout is also energetic. It's mental, emotional, and spiritual. And if your attention stays locked onto pain, betrayal, exhaustion, overwhelm, disappointment, fear, you keep recreating that energy internally. So before we go any deeper, I want you to pause for a moment and really think about this. What do you genuinely desire more of right now? Love, peace, energy, clarity? Do you desire joy, rest, confidence? Feel free to type it in the chat. What is one thing that you most desire right now? So, for those who are new here, I'm Dr. Madea Allen. I help burnt out women over 40 reclaim their energy naturally through nervous system regulation, nourishment, movement, and deeper inner transformation. And one of the biggest things that I've learned through my own burnout recovery journey and through working with clients is this: the thoughts and the pictures that you repeatedly hold in your mind, they shape your experience of life. If your mind is constantly replaying stress, disappointment, fear, overwhelm, betrayal, exhaustion, your nervous system keeps responding to those pictures and emotions. And your body doesn't really know the difference between what's happening now and what you keep rehearsing internally. So during my own burnout recovery, which was one of the worst cycles of burnouts I had ever experienced, my attention was constantly locked into anger, betrayal, loss, hurt, emptiness. So when I was going through this cycle of burnout, I would wake up, first of all, exhausted. As soon as I would come to consciousness, open my eyes, I just felt immediately heavy. I would lean into this very downtrodden space. And I had immediately went to an incident that was a catapult for this burnout. It was a burnout that was initiated through post COVID, being exhausted in my fourth year of medical school, as well as ending a relationship that I held dear. So I was experiencing extreme heartbreak. So as soon as I would wake up in the morning, I would immediately go to this incident of ending the relationship, feeling angry, feeling betrayed, feeling lied to, feeling hurt. And then I would constantly loop this negativity in my mind, just angry that it happened. How dare he do this to me? It was this emotional loop, just replaying that pain mentally for at least an hour before I even got out of the bed. I would be just kind of locked and attached to this pain. And what that did is it kept me in an emotional loop. So even when my external environment, I was actually doing amazing in school, getting all top grades in all my classes, was awarded a prestigious award, all this stuff. Even when things were shifting externally, internally, I was still feeding those same pictures of fear and anger and betrayal. So my nervous system stayed trapped in this emotional loop. It stayed stuck in this exhausting loop. And quite honestly, that's what kept me burnt out. So, what you focus on matters because your attention, it gives energy to the thoughts and the pictures. So if you can think about it, you have these thoughts and pictures in your mind, but they only animate, come to life when we pay attention, when we focus on the thoughts and the pictures of the past. If you're constantly rehearsing exhaustion, overwhelm, disappointment, fear, those become the dominant pictures in your mind and you stay exhausted. So, what actually happens if you start giving your attention to a different picture? So, this is a key component to how I work with women to reclaim their energy. We redirect the focus of the mind. When we are recovering from burnout, we take the time to envision who we are actually becoming. I see burnout as a rebirth. I see burnout as you are literally burning out your old self and becoming this entirely new being. So, in that visualization, you are envisioning who are you're becoming, your future self. This is really important when I'm working with women to for them to have this image very clear in their mind because it's like their guiding light through this very intense process. It can feel intense as we're leaving our old selves behind. So for a moment, if you could, if you are experiencing burnout and you want some real key practices on how to generally recreate yourself, to become this new person, to birth into the new you who is asking to be born at this time out of this burnout. Ask yourself, who are you becoming through this process? What does she look like? How does she feel in her body? How does she move through the day? How does she wake up in the morning? How does she go to bed at night? How does she care for herself? What types of foods does the new you eat to sustain her energy and to feed her, nourish her cells? How does she feel about the people she spends time and energy with? How does she feel about where she goes to work? How does she feel about her home? How does she feel about her neighborhood? How does she feel about herself? How does she respond to stress? I want you to definitely go back and check out the replay and put these questions down in your journal and really take time to contemplate them because this is the focal point that helps you to become the new you, no longer focusing on the old you who's constantly replaying, staying stuck in the emotional loops of those lower vibrations of betrayal, of fear, of victimhood, of loss, of grief. All of that constantly keeps us in a loop that literally is burning us out. I want you to ask, how does this person walk in the world? This is really important because this is how you will walk, right? This is how you will wake up. This is how you are going to bed at night. This is how you're responding to stress. This is the new you that is becoming. So I want to share a really powerful experience I had with, helping my future self beckon me forth to my new life, my expanded experience. Very recently, I had this experience with focusing on future self to help me manifest a trip to Mexico. I made a powerful decision to go on a business retreat, and this was one of the largest investments I had made in myself and in my business. And quite frankly, it just felt like a quantum leap. And it was a huge difference from my then reality to where I was going. So my then reality felt very negative. It was not so bright. I felt very small, full of lack, scarcity, just constantly thinking, how can I afford? I can't afford this. I didn't feel worthy. I just felt overall just broke, right? That was my reality when I had the opportunity was presented to go on a retreat. So that was in clear opposition to the future self that I saw very clearly already on the retreat. In that energy of seeing myself already saying yes to the retreat, that energy felt bright. It felt expansive. It felt like I was 1,000% worthy of the big investment. I felt rich in that experience. So there was definitely, it felt like a duking out between the positive and the negative. There was my current reality, which didn't feel very positive, but then there was the reality that I was moving into, had I said yes to myself, of just brightness, expansive, abundance. And I felt the pull and weight of the past, the little self who felt very for lack of a better term, broke. And then I felt the pull of the future self who felt abundant and rich. So it was literally like a duking out between the positive and negative. And what that created was, quite frankly, a feeling like I was losing my mind. I was crying. I was didn't know how I was going to make this experience happen. I knew I had to be there because the bigger part of me knew that I was going to find a solution to invest in myself, to go on this business retreat and make it happen. And this is what happens when we are faced with decisions that allow us to make a quantum leap. There can be this feeling of being divided, and in that division, there is the push and the pull, and not feeling steady and strong, and finding excuses not to move forward. But then, if you are committed to your expansion and your growth and your learning, you cannot unsee that you are moving into something bigger and brighter than where you currently are. So, what I did was I wrote a letter from the perspective of future self to my then current self. And it was 12 weeks into the future beyond going to the retreat. And it was quite powerful. This is a powerful exercise when it's time to manifest, when it's time to make a quantum leap. You have the ability to tap into the part of yourself who has already accomplished your goals and dreams. You just have to have the awareness that it is so. You can do this as a multidimensional being. So when I wrote the letter to my future self, it was like a soothing balm to my spirit. BALM. Soothing balm to my spirit, because it was very reassuring. My future self was just in the energy of, it's done, dear. Don't worry about it. You may be going through changes and up and down, feeling like you're losing your mind, but rest assured, you will figure it out and you will get yourself there. And lo and behold, when I stayed close to what had already been done, which was communicated through my future self, that helped me to stay in the vibration of creativity, of the solution, of figuring it out, acting as if it was done. That's a powerful principle when it's time to manifest and stretch and grow into the next best version of yourself. So I'm happy to report that I manifested that trip because I understood the assignment, and I understood that, I trusted that it was already done. I trusted my future self. And this is the power that we each have as we are expanding, as women over 40 coming out of this experience of burnout. This is within your ability to do. just be clear and visualize who are you becoming beyond the burnout. So, I want to basically remind you of this. Burnout recovery, it's not about just recovering from who you've been. It's about becoming someone entirely new. It's about becoming an expanded, creative, energized being. An organic soul energy shifter is someone who intentionally shifts their inner world so that their outer world can change too. So if this resonated with you, follow along for real conversations about burnout recovery, energy, and becoming your next best self. Until next time, may the blessings be.